everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good evening, Rush Nation. How are we doing? It is back to our regular scheduled programming, and it's great to be here with a very, very good friend of mine who's not been on the show before. We've talked about getting him on a few times, and then we thought we'd do it with a group of other charity folks, and then that never happened. And then just all sort of life got in the way and all that malarkey. And but he's here now, and it's probably the best week of the year to get him on, and I'm pleased he's here. It is the founder of the JTT Cup, Mr. Q84, Matt from Twitter, king of the wonky stickers. Here he is on 5-Yard Rush. How you doing, pal?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm never going to live down the wonky stickers, am I? So
no, never.
Good opportunity to reignite that hatred tomorrow night at the London Live Scott Fish Bowl drafts. But maybe I'll behave this year, and someone else can take the flak for another year. But no, I am good. Thank you. Obviously, we've got an exciting weekend coming up with lots of different things going on. Got even more exciting last night with the soccer, and looking forward to chatting through JTT Cup bits with you tonight.
Yeah, mate. Well, it's a pleasure having you here, especially with it all kicking off. And let's do Scott Fish Bowl first. So you're drafting in the live draft. Who is in your live draft?
Who is it? Do you know what? I know every name that's on there. I haven't got the list to hand. But there's a good few people that are there for the first time. I know that. Nice. But I honestly can't remember. I looked at the competition and thought, yeah, that's an easy division. I'll win that. So I definitely didn't think that. But yeah, it's. I
was going to ask you how it went last year.
Yeah, it did not go well last year. But yeah, it's always a good event. It was a great event last year. We've obviously got 4 divisions drafting this year, live in London, all at the same venue at the same time. So it'll be a good night. And then we've obviously got the UKFFC event on Saturday as well, which will be much of the same, just without the live drafting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm absolutely gutted. Gutted I'm not there for that. Mr. Scampers is joining us in California. How you doing, my friend? Good to have you here with us and talking charity leagues. It is Scott Fish Bowl week. You obviously sitting tight, waiting. Have you got a strategy for? Obviously, don't give too much away, but have you got a plan of what you're going to do with the early picks of the Scott Fish Bowl? Or you're just going to see how drunk you get and spin a wheel?
Yeah. I think like last year, I took some rankings and some stats that Wyatt produced. Just because the week of the Scott Fish Bowl live draft, I saw a tweet by him linking it, and I was like, yeah, I'll have a look at them, and then I print them and I took it. And obviously there was 12 of us, very nerdy looking guys, all with our rankings and laptops and etc. This year I've been off work this week because I had a few events planned and stuff this week, and I keep meaning to get some stuff printed off or some stuff written down, and I haven't done it. And tomorrow I take the kids to school and then head to London straight away. So I probably will not have any documentation, and then I'll just wing it. It's fine. It'll be all right on the night.
The good thing is, last year we were one of the first drafts, so there was absolutely nothing to go off. Yeah. This year it's one of the last drafts, and so you do have that ability to look at ADP. There's a good amount of it. You can kind of see what other people have done and gone, yeah, I want part of that, or no, I don't want part of that. And you at least you'll have a bit more of a picture. Jack has given a very savoury piece of advice, which is to make sure that you bring your ID.
Classic.
Absolutely. Jack's taken all the QBs, which is the way to go. I mean, that's fine, but make sure your QBs last more than 4 plays, Jack, is the advice I would give you. Just a good one to go for. If they can last more than 4 plays, you might be all right. I'm gutted not to be there this year. I will be back next year to give you all an arse whooping like I did last year. So But yeah, let's move on to the JTT Cup. Now, most people watching this, listening to this, are probably in the JTT Cup, but I'm going to broaden the audience and take a punt. There's probably a few that don't. So I guess talk us through the Joshua Tarrant Trust, why you started the JTT Cup, and sort of what it's for, and kind of what's the kind of purpose behind it, really.
Yeah, cool. So the Joshua Tarrant Trust it's an independent charity that's local to me, based local to me. It's a charity that funds care for children with brain tumours at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. They first kind of, as a charity, they first came to my attention during the first kind of COVID lockdown. And I guess the short version is basically one of my good friends who's a Bears fan. He's a DJ, couldn't work. So he set up a Facebook group called the Disco Kitchen, and the primary aim of it was to stream a live set out of his kitchen to people on a Friday and Saturday night because people were stuck at home, couldn't go out. And the group got quite a following, and as it kind of grew, he started incorporating some charity fundraisers, and all the money from those fundraisers went to the Joshua Tarrant Trust. So that brought it to my attention, and then it was during the 2020 NFL season that I thought, you know what, I want to try and help them a little bit. And I've organised fantasy competitions in the past, not NFL ones, other sports. And I guess for me, it was, what can I do? I've got a modest circle of Twitter followers at the time, maybe 600-700. If I can raise them 500 quid, great. So I thought we'll set up a best ball contest. Obviously, there were a few charity contests that were already around that inspired that. Scott Fish Bowl being one of them, and obviously your own FFCC and Warrior Bowl, who were all already established. So I thought I'll make it best ball. I'll make it a season-long contest. And the first year we got 60 people and we raised £765. And I was really, really pleased with that. And I didn't really know when I set it up where it was going to go. And fast forward to, obviously, we're now starting year 4. This year we've got 620 people in it, and we just passed, literally last weekend, we passed £32,000 raised for them all time.
That's amazing.
Which obviously I'm really, really pleased with, and I'm really thankful for the community of people that have helped it grow, the community of people that share it, help me with the admin. There's a lot of people involved, and it's been fantastic to see it grow. And the most important part of it is that a fantastic independent charity who had no marketing budget, no PR, they couldn't afford to fundraise during COVID. It's made a difference to that charity, and obviously hoping that will continue going forward.
Mate, it's phenomenal that you obviously have done this, and just how big it's become. It is a phenomenal thing. 620 people. It's no easy feat to get on board. It also has, hardly any dropouts in that number. So it's not like you fill these and then you've actually then got to go and get 20, 30 more. You have a very small handful, but it's so small. It's single digits, isn't it, normally? That
Yeah. Last year we had 440 people, and I only had one person not show for the draft,
which is just phenomenal. That shows you. I think that says a lot to me about the way that you run it, because the engagement on it is really, really high. There's constant messages, constant updates. And it's one of those things that with charity tournaments you get some, and I think anyone that does it, it's phenomenal. It's a huge amount of work. You get some where the engagement's probably a little bit lower, where there isn't, you just sort of, you get the results at the end and it is what it is, and maybe around playoff time. But you're doing weekly conference standings. You're engaging with the chats. Or if it's not you, like a dedicated commission, it's great. And the idea of this going to your you're in a conference, and so you start off in a division, and then you're competing in conference, and then you're going out to the wider final. It's a great format. What's different this year to previous years? Because there's quite a few differences this year. I personally noticed, but I'd rather you sort of explain it to me. What is different, and what made you sort of change it this year?
So I guess for me, the main differences are in the scoring. So I kind of stumbled around with format the first 3 years, and last year I was really happy with how we ran it. And the first couple of years we did, obviously, it's PF. PF is the ranking. It's not win loss. And then top X amount of people in the conference go through to the playoffs. And in the first 2 years we had head-to-head playoffs. And then I kind of got a bit of feedback that why is it PF, cumulative PF in the regular season and then knockout in. And I thought about that and thought, yeah, okay. So last year we did it differently, where we had 15 people from each conference qualify, and then we just got rid of the 5 lowest scores each week until we had one person. We had a conference champion. They were in the week 17 final. So I've kept that format. The main differences are in the scoring. So I try and mix the scoring up every year, but not loads. I don't like to really change it. Just little tweaks. So this year, the scoring for quarterbacks is slightly deflated because it's 5 points per passing touchdown, but it's -2 for interceptions and -2 for pick sixes. So although it's super flex, in some of the mocks I've seen, and I took part in one the other night, quarterbacks aren't necessarily going as early as you would think. They're still going quite early, but it's not you must take quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, in my opinion. And then it's half point per first. It's full PPR, but it's half point per first down. Last year it was full point per first down, and then there is a little bit of tight end premium sprinkled in with an extra half point per reception as well. And then I also, because of the changes to the kickoff rules in the NFL this year, and obviously the unknown of what that's going to look like for everybody, I just chucked in some return yards as well. So 1 point per 10 return yards. Similar to Scott Fish Bowl, because I know they've got some kick returners are all the rage in Scott Fish Bowl this year, because lots of people are questioning who are they going to be and where do they go. I've seen Shaheed taken as early as round 5.
He went round 1, mate, in the Scott Fish Bowl. Someone took him at the 112. Yeah, someone took him at the 112. Someone took him in the 2nd.
Wow.
I took him in the 6th.
Okay, yeah, and that feels maybe a bit more normal. But we'll see. So there, and then the other thing is, which I keep in every year, is we just have big play and big game bonuses. So it plays touchdowns of 50-yard plus, and then receiving and rushing 200-yard games and 400-yard passing games. So, which obviously you were on, you had your show yesterday morning. You were doing a little bit around scoring and projections, weren't you? And that's obviously a bit of an anomaly that's very hard to project. So I like to have a little bit of unknown in there, and I just have people guessing. The roster format is the same this year. It's 10 starters. It's 1 super flex spot, but it is a 28-round draft because it's season long best ball. And I've had 24 rounds. I've had 32 rounds. 32 seemed too much. 24 wasn't enough for injuries. So I've settled in the middle this year and hope that will feel like a kind of a happy medium.
You've also moved it to 10-team leagues,
yes,
as well, because it was previously 8, which I'm a big fan of. I feel like 8-team, there's a wider luck variant to it in terms of you could draft great players in like the 8th, 9th round that you shouldn't do, and I think. But I also get 12-team is not everyone's cup of tea, and 14 and 16 is also difficult. So I like the move to 10. I think that is going to make it a bit more of a challenge for people, but I don't think it's too much of a challenge to where it will isolate people, and it will still keep the drafts moving as well. So I was a big fan when I saw it moved to 10. This year.
And I think part of the reason we had 8 last year was a little bit that there seemed to be an excessive amount of injuries in year 2, but also the format that we had last year was 8 because our theme was divisional rivals. So it was to have Bucks, Saints fans together. So it was easy to just go, right, we'll have 2 Bucks fans, we'll have 2 Saints fans, etc., etc., etc. Which obviously I really liked, and there was obviously quite a lot of banter flowing during the season because of it, and there were some divisions that had little side wagers on it, and the team that finished last in the division had to donate more to the JTT, so there was little stuff like that going on as well. So but it made it easy to go back to 10 because we had more of a kind of a standard theme this year.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely prefer the 10. I think it forces people to be a bit more creative in the later rounds as well, which I think is good. Like, I think a 280 man pool, 300 man pool is kind of what you want to go for in this sort of format. So 10 teams, 28 rounds, 280 players. I think that's good. It's going to force people to do some crazy things, which is kind of what you want, right? I think, and we'll get into this, like, some thoughts on how to sort of progress, because you obviously know all the winners and you see the rosters that do well. You've got all the data, so I'm going to pull your brain. As I said the other day, this is not a tournament I've ever done religiously well in at all. I've always done quite well. I feel like I've had a bit of a bad run in luck. Like, I think 2 years ago, I had no quarterbacks, and I think last year I had a couple of. I think I had Rodgers, so obviously he went after like about 4 minutes, and so that kind of made it a bit difficult with injuries last year. But I was kind of competitive, and I think I just missed out on the playoffs like towards the end. But it's not one I ever do particularly well in, but I still love because the people in it are great. I remember the year you did it regionally, which was great. Speak to a load of people that were quite near me, which was a lot of fun at the same time. So, tell us a little bit about you told us a little bit about the charity and obviously the huge amount of money that you've raised. What is that money going to do for the charity? Like, in terms of what are they going to be able to do with this money to help victims, or help not victims but families of children with brain tumors?
So that's exactly what the charity do. So they fund two paid posts at Addenbrooke's Hospital that deal with children with brain tumours, and the rest of the money goes to the support of their families. So sometimes, it might involve a long hospital stay, and they put the families up within the hospital, so they're close by to the children. Addenbrooke's has a really specialist area for brain tumours, and a ward for the children. So it means that people travel from far away for the care, and it might mean sometimes people are travelling hundreds of miles to get the care that obviously the children need and deserve, but they're hundreds of miles from home, so that pays to support them as well. And essentially, and they work with another company called Brainbow, who support them with that. And when I first started raising money for them, they had to raise £1,000 a week just to keep that going.
Wow.
And £1,000 a week doesn't sound like loads of money, but for an independent charity that doesn't have that national platform, that was a lot. So I know that when the running costs became slightly less in the second year that I was helping fundraise for them, and I know that when I gave them the second year total, which was around 5,300, that was enough to keep the place going for 8 weeks. So for them, it was like, it's a worry off their mind. They obviously do loads of other fundraising stuff as well themselves, but that's the difference it makes. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Sean and Denise Tarrant, who are the parents that set the trust up because their son Joshua passed away from a brain tumour. So there's a real personal feel to it, and seeing the work that they've done off the back of him passing away 10 years ago, and seeing the strength that they have it's really inspiring. So it makes me want to raise more money for them every year, because I just, every charity, don't get me wrong, every charity is deserving of the funds that are raised for them. In my mind, this is just absolutely one of the best causes out there.
And I think it's important when you raise money for charity that there's a connection to it. And I think what we do well in the UK here is we raise for these smaller charities, these charities that don't have this huge collateral, huge bank of resource. You and the JTT, we've raised for MPS Society, Unique, CDH UK this year. Okay, this year's probably our biggest one in Crohn's and colitis, but that one has a lot of personal meaning to me, and I felt, and you and I are very similar in this vein of, if you ever receive something in this world, you kind of feel like you owe a debt, and you want to do right by it and make it right, and that's my driven for this year. But I think I think it's so great that these smaller charities are getting the recognition on these sorts of platforms and getting life-changing amounts of money. You just said, you've reduced their burden for 8 weeks. You've run a centre this year, and you've raised, 13,000?
It's 15, just over 15 and a half
15,
this year,
so 15 and a half, which is just a phenomenal amount of money.
Yeah.
And to see that go to, a charity, that's a huge amount of money that they can, fund that centre for a long time, or whatever it is that they're going to do with it, support families. To them, it's a lot of money, and they'll make great use of it. So it's phenomenal to see. And you were recently rewarded by Denise and everyone at the charity, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was asked to go to their trustees meeting about 6 weeks ago. So their trustees is a team of 6. There was only 5 at the meeting, actually, but they asked me to go and essentially explain to them how we've raised all of that money. Because, fantasy football is very niche, isn't it? Especially in the UK, where American football is obviously growing in popularity, but is not by no means even in the top 10 probably popular sports in the UK. Certainly not the top 5. So it was kind of a bit odd because I had to go and try and explain it to him in real layman's terms. But talking about what had inspired me in terms of the other charity contest that there already was out there, and they couldn't believe it when I told them. Sean and Denise already knew, but the other 3 trustees that were there, they couldn't believe it when I told them the total that had been raised. At that point, it was about 28k. And then, they asked me, which I was completely stunned by. They asked me to be, an official ambassador for the charity. So, I don't do it for that, but it was incredibly I'm so honoured. It was incredibly humbling to be asked to be an ambassador. So I've got a profile going up on their website about me and what I've done to raise the money. It's just and it's just about raising awareness of the charity. Really, it's a job that I now take extra seriously because they've put their trust in me to do that. So
right, phenomenal. It's so good to see, and the amount of awareness in our community now because of you for that charity is incredible, and it's something now that I know that. And I hope never, ever to be in a situation where I know a kid that needs that support. But if I do, I now know I can direct someone in that direction. And I think, the amount of awareness that you do, and it isn't just the charity tournament you run, it's you update people on what they're doing, the charity itself. And I think that's the key of it. So, mate, a phenomenal effort, and it's so great what you do. Let's talk a little bit about the tournament. You obviously have run this. You've seen the winning rosters. Tell us a little bit about how to be successful from your experience in this tournament.
So I guess the key pieces of info. So you do. I think you have to build a balanced roster. So and I don't just mean I'm going to pick my 10. I'm going to pick the 10 starting slots first, and then I'm going to fill out my bench. It's thinking about balance from a total roster number. So if you've got a 28-man squad, how many quarterbacks do you need? Because it's not going to be 2 or 3. You're probably going to need 5 at least. And you're not going to get 5 starters. But the key thing is thinking about who's the number 1 backup in the league that's going to get a call when X quarterback gets a season-ending injury. Is it this year? Is it a Justin Fields? Is it a Gardner Minshew? Is it someone like that? Or if I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers last season, okay, nobody knew he was going to get injured after 4 snaps.
No.
But am I going to take Zach Wilson in round 30 just in case? I know Zach Wilson wasn't amazing, but it's thinking about a little bit of backup, because if you lose your top guy or your top guys, you're going to really struggle if you don't have someone that's coming in, even if they're not as good. So it's thinking a bit about the balance, and then your standard stuff, having a good old look at scoring, thinking about if it's not your first year in it, thinking about how the scoring differs from last year, and then it's how do you find someone after round 20 that's going to really play their ADP. Last year it was Puka Nakua. Puka Nakua was taken in round 24 as an average in the JTT Cup.
That's mad, isn't it?
We had 55 divisions, and he was only drafted in 47. So in 8 divisions he went undrafted, which is incredible. And I think the stat is that out of the 47 people that did draft him, 42 made the playoffs. So I'm not saying that Puka Nakua is going to come along this year, but it's finding a player or a couple of players after round 20 that are going to seriously give you some upside. And that's where, if I look at all 3 years, regardless of number of teams in the division or the scoring format, they're the key things that have driven the winner's performance, and maybe a little bit of luck with injuries as well. In seasonal best ball, you do need a bit of luck with injuries as well.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely need to have a bit of injury luck. Otherwise, that's it. You kind of in a difficult situation. And then I think on top of that, I think it's what you said there. I think it's finding those gems late on, and it's thinking about players who could arise into situations. So next man up in every position is really important.
Yeah.
So looking at running backs, who's the next running back up? There's some guys on ADP that are going to be severely slept on. I think is really important. Same with wide receivers. You're going to have a couple of wide receivers coming in that are probably a little bit banged up. How do you get the best out of them? And who are the guys behind? I tend to find rookies get over inflated in this format. So I think a lot of people love the new hotness in best ball. One question I was going to ask you is this: there's a lot of talk on stacking, and I almost feel like, and I said this the other day on the breakfast show, that I almost don't want to stack unless there's a nice reason to. It comes at a good value, a good price, because everyone stacks, and lots of people are reaching to complete stacks. And I almost feel like stacks were great when they were quite new and niche, and people were like, "Oh, okay, I'll stack. I see the reason why you want to stack." But I think now, because everybody does it, you almost need to go the other way and pivot away from stacks. When you draft, do you typically look for the stacks and those winning rosters, and those rosters that have done quite well, if they had quite prominent stacks, or is it really like scooping up the value that's made the big difference?
I think so. Historically I've not been a massive fan of stacking, and I've been quite vocal about that. However, in the JTT Cup, I have seen it work very well. What I would say is that all three previous winners had stacks in their top 8 or 10 picks.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that it was the number one reason they won, but it certainly had a positive impact. So I think a decent stack that you get lucky with, again from an injury point of view, and it fires maybe not even all season, because as you know, in best ball you only need a good number of performances. You don't necessarily need that consistency. And then if you couple that in with all the other things that I just talked about around, obviously, the value after round 20 and the good balance in the roster, then so I guess the short answer is, although I've not been a fan, I've been converted. But in a 620 person tournament, you are going to have a lot of other people with the same stacks as you. So the differential comes from some of the other players that you're picking. So I guess what you're saying about pivoting the other way, it does kind of ring true, because it's clear that they work, but it's not the thing that's necessarily driving the winning performance.
100%, and that's good to hear, because I think, like, if the opportunity's there to stack, I think absolutely. I wouldn't pass on a player because he's on the same team with someone I've already got. But I'm not reaching to get them. So, like, if I have Jonathan Taylor and I want Michael Pittman, I'm not going to reach well above what I think his value is. The ADP value doesn't bother me. I don't care about ADP value, and people think I reach. I have a value on a player, and if I think that player's worth reaching for, I don't care what the ADP says. I go off my rankings and my projections, but I won't necessarily reach upon my projections on possible outcomes to make a stack. And I think there's danger of sometimes people take players they don't want to complete stacks. And I think that's the part I think you get into real trouble on your construction. One of the things I want to talk about, especially when it comes to looking at the differentials late on, is these kick returners. So I did the morning show this morning, and I actually listed all the kick returners. So for each team, who I think they're going to be. Now we don't know. We haven't had training camp. We haven't had preseason games. You know, some are nailed on. Some are going to be a little bit more. Some are going to be a bit more unknown.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, first of all, there's two things on this. One, sleeper projections don't include them. So if you're going off the sleeper list and you're looking at the scoring, it's not going to include those return yards.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done a little bit of work on the returners and ideas of what they might do from a returning yard perspective, you're going to undervalue these players, and so therefore people are going to pick them up. But also the new kickoff rules. So I looked up this morning. I think 27% of kicks were returned last year in the NFL. There were some teams that all season had 9 kick returns, 10 kick returns all season. So not even one a game.
Wow.
They weren't, mad because of the injuries, and they just let it go in. And so the XFL had 97%. The USFL had 92%. But I also think the caliber of kickers was not as good. So you've got NFL kickers who can blow it out the end zone. So I don't think you're going to get this 97% either. So I think people that are shooting for that optimism of 97% kicks, not going to happen. People that are thinking it's going to be exactly the same as it is at 27%, not going to happen. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, 60-ish percent. I would look at kick returns going up 300%. I think is a good baseline, and you're going to be there or thereabouts. And so when you factor that in with the points returns, you're going to have a lot of players in those late rounds. So everyone knows about Shaheed, Shakir, but Marvin Mims, but you got a lot of other guys in there that are going to be like Naheem Hines.
Yeah.
So like Naheem Hines is a guy I have widely targeted in late rounds of drafts. Tyrone Tracy of the Giants. Even someone like McCole Hardman, might be a really interesting one. It's not someone I named this morning, but someone who I think could be interesting. And I think those are the guys, I think, if you're looking for those late round values, they are players I would look to target because they've got immediate opportunities to excel with these kick returns, because you're going to have more return for touchdowns than ever before. These 20-yard returns are going to be 40-yard returns this year, probably.
Yeah. I think so you're absolutely right. And at the moment, I think the biggest what if is obviously who are the kick returners going to be? Are they going to stumble across a better kick returner that no one's talking about? Lots of people are talking about Shaheed. He's going very early in Scott Fishbowl. I think for me, what people need to think about here is that Scott Fishbowl is a redraft league with kick return points, and we're a best ball. So is the amount of points that X player is going to get from kick returns in any given game going to be enough to propel them into the starting lineup? It's very different picking Shaheed and starting him because you think he might get 7, 8, 12 points from kick returns in a game, to relying on them in best ball to score enough to get you up to onto your starting roster, if that makes sense. I think most of the consistently good teams in the JTT Cup last year, your lowest scoring player was scoring 12 or 13 points in any given week. Certainly double figures. So I guess for me, it's they might have a couple of good kick returns, but is that going to propel them into double figures? Because are they going to actually be seeing many targets or many carries, depending on who they are, in the regular game that's going to then bump their score up? And that's a rhetorical question. I'm not that au fait with kick returners. I haven't done enough research around it, and that scares the bejesus out of me ahead of drafting Scott Fishbowl tomorrow. But that's where people have got to think it's slightly different, even if the actual scoring is the same as the Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah, well, there's a 28-minute pod I dropped this morning, so you can listen to that, and that'll list every. We watch that, listen to that. I'll have every kick returner I believe is going to be for every team. Washington's is a little bit difficult. I'd kind of like for a dart at it. It could be anyone, but the rest of them. But I think so. I think the players for me, Shaheed is obviously the most common one. because of the fact he's got the big playability as well, and he does get into lineups. Like he only needs a few touches, and a few targets to really get into starting lineup territory. Marvin Mims is another. Tajay Spears is another one in that situation with Tony Pollard. He's going to get touches.
Yeah.
So those three for me. Shakir is another one. You know, Keel Coleman's going to come along slowly. Shakir's playing the slot. He's the only guy that Josh Allen knows in that offense and has a relationship with, other than Kincaid and Knox.
Yeah.
So he's going to get targets. So I think those guys in particular are going to be ones that very early are going to be well worth reaching for certain points, because they will be starters, because they will get to, there's a pathway to them getting 15 to 20 points quite easily. Tajay Spears, if he makes 10 points off kick returns, which is highly likely, and then all of a sudden he does, he gets, 6 carries, 3 catches,
and
30, 40 yards. Doesn't matter if he scores or not. He's, you're looking at 17, 18 points, 20 points. It's not difficult to get to for him. And I think that's true of a few players. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a few that aren't going to score. But I think that's the difference of trying to find those guys. I did a bit of research. I gave some stats on some of them where we had a bit of history. But I think the two things I would look for with the kick returners is they're going to go up. I'd expect probably most teams will get probably 3 kick returns a game now on average. Some will get more. So I think if they get 30, 40 each, because they're averaging sort of 28, 29 now, it's more advantageous. So you could see a bit more. And yeah, there's a good point here that it could be drastically changed, that teams go, oh, we don't like conceding 40 yards. Let's just blow it out of the end zone. I will say there's probably only about 10 kickers in the league that can consistently do that, but then there's quite a few punters. So they might train up their punters.
Yeah.
I know the Buccaneers do this. They're take kickoffs for this reason. So, it could all change. So that is the risk of playing this strategy. So I think it's good to sort of diversify, reach for it, but don't make it your whole strategy.
Yeah. Great.
Do you have any tips for people who perhaps haven't really played best ball well before? We've talked about stacking. We've talked about sort of some late round picks and sleepers. But is there a strategy? Is there things that, like, people who just aren't really that good at best ball, things that you've seen over the years that you can recommend to people and they can sort of have a thought and try in this draft?
I think the only other one really that is fairly prominent we've not already talked about is that the players that are a little bit boom or bust any given week are generally going to be taken slightly earlier than their ADP. So classic one in the last couple of years was someone like Gabe Davis. So Gabe Davis could put up a donut any given week, but he could also score 25 points any given week as well. And that's where, you don't, to get into the playoffs of the JTT Cup, you need to have a fairly consistent score of 200 plus across the first 13 weeks. So for me, it's how do you build your roster around your bye weeks and having that balance across the roster from a position point of view, that you can then take some of those boom or bust players that might only get into your lineup 5 out of the 13 weeks, but that might be enough. And it might be that you're taking someone round 12, round 14 that only gets into your starting lineup 5 times. But that's enough because someone else is doing it the other 7 weeks or the other 8 weeks. So I guess outside of the things that we'd already talked about around the stacking and roster building and stuff like that, that's probably the only other one. And just remember to, season-long best ball, some people, even though, you can communicate with them as best as you can, they still get 3 weeks in and go, I can't do any waivers. No, you can't. And we've told you a number of times, and there's a pinned message that says you can't do it. And they're like, oh my God, I really hate my team now. Yeah. So we put the graphics out for that this week. I thought we'll do it just before the draft. It's fresh in everyone's mind. And then hopefully they'll read it and think, yeah, I need to do this or I need to do that.
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder to that. There is no waivers. So you got to pick your team. I would suggest on a 28 round build, I think you have to have a minimum of 4, and I wouldn't blame people taking a 5th QB, like one of those reserve QBs you mentioned, Zach Wilson. But you've got some guys out there like Joe Flacco. You've got, you look at those injury prone quarterbacks and think about taking up their backup. And just having that insurance policy, because you never know that might be the difference between you getting in and not getting into the JTT playoffs. And it is so competitive and it is so tight. Like, I think I missed out by a fraction number of points last year. I've missed out before by like less than 10 points as well. So it's, every point does really matter, especially at like there are fine margins at the top to get into the playoffs to survive every week. I think we had Bob Long on last week, who you and I drafted with last season, and consistency is good. There's definitely some guys who are undervalued from the consistency side that you should definitely be picking up on and playing. So I would definitely be looking into that side of things, because I think having a consistent set of players, I think, is really important. There we go. Pitsy's come on. No waivers, no trades. My favorite moment from people. Yeah, 100%. And I think having those consistent guys, but don't go too safe. Like, you've got to shoot your shot. Have a strategy. Shoot for those high variance guys. Don't necessarily fill your whole team with them, but find a few of them and definitely pick your guy and go for it. I think, and more importantly, I think, pick your favorite players. Have fun.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. And ultimately, that is the key thing. So it's great to be a winner of a massive tournament that's got hundreds of people in any of them, and there's a lot of them. The key thing to always bring it back to is the charity is the most important thing. So we all want to have fun. We all want to win it. I mean, this is the one tournament I don't want to win, because that would look dodgy as hell. I was thinking about it the other day. Like, if I somehow won my conference and made the final, I would remove myself from the final, because I can't. Although I donate and I play, I can't win it. That would just be the worst thing ever.
Disagree. I know.
No.
I get that. Look, I get it, but I also think it's different when it's best ball. So I think when it's best ball and you literally cannot touch it.
Yeah, true.
Whereas I think if it's a season long, I think, if I ran a charity season long tournament with waivers and everything, and I'd literally bossed the waivers and taken advantage, that might feel a little bit more sticky, because there is that more element of control through the season. You've got advantageous by picking up on things other people haven't, etc., etc. I think in best ball, I think it's perfectly acceptable, mate, because it is literally a set and forget, and there is a huge luck variance. It's not just the players you draft; they've all got to survive. They've all got to go through 17 weeks and not get injured. I think, mate. I think I wouldn't take yourself out. I think if you win it, you win it, because ultimately you haven't been able to influence the result.
No, that's true. And I guess, if I look at my own performance in the competition, I made the playoffs in year one when there was only 60 people and 16 people made the playoffs, and I've been terrible since. So actually, the chances of me of me making the playoffs, let alone win it, is probably very, very slim. But yeah, it's ultimately, I just want people to have fun. I want them. They've all donated some money to a great cause. We run it. There's 12 guys that help me with some of the communication stuff, which is great. And yeah, just have a bit of a laugh, have a bit of banter in your division, and someone's got to win it. One of those 620 people starting their draft on Sunday will win this year. So
yeah, 100%. And I think you make a great point. Have fun, have a giggle. That's what it's all about. Be nice to people, as it says on the screen. It's an absolutely important one. And I think my only thing with these charity leagues is people kick off a lot about the clock.
Yep.
And there's over excessive tagging, and at the end of the day, we live in a world where it's okay to just let things go, and just everyone's got lives. It's all fine. Just take it easy. Don't need to tag people incessantly. You don't have to moan if someone times out. Like, it's fine. Like, at the end of the day, round one's really important. Get your round one picks in, because then you as a commissioner know you're there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do a runner. That's a really important one. So I get the round one urgency. I think that's fine because for any commissioner, round one's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, just be nice to people, respect people, let them pick when they want. Don't need to excessively tag. If you tag, great. If you don't tag, don't rag on the people who don't tag. Like I don't tag, you don't tag. I don't see the point. The system does it. If they're not looking, they're busy. That's fine. Like ultimately, we've all got a thing. Oh, here we go. There's a question for you in the chat before we let you go.
Oh dear. It'll be something about his mother. His mum, and his sister are all in it and have been since the beginning. I wonder if it might be a question about her. But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to it starting. It's always a good day because there's lots of chat on social media about it as well. Who's more likely? There you go. I told you it'd be related to his family.
You did.
Who's more likely to do well? I can't remember who won last year out of I think it was his sister. I think it was Emily. But I'm gonna say Emily. Emily this year. No, actually, I'm gonna say his mum. Emily's had a baby and she's got a bit of baby brain, so we'll go with Joe, his mother, and because it won't be him.
Fighting talk.
He's also one of my very best friends, so I'm allowed to say that about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, mate, awesome. I think this is one of my favorite events every year. It's so good what you've done. It's so good what you've built. See the amount of people in it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And just everything you do is should be recognized and appreciated. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for putting on an awesome tournament. Thank you for coming on because it's just great to chat. Anytime I get the opportunity to chat to you and spend some time with you is great. Why don't you tell everybody where they can interact and find you? I know we did have the captions on. I think they've come off with these. There we go. But tell everyone where they can interact with you. And then tell everyone when 2025 is going to be open as well, because I know that's going to be on some people's minds.
Yeah, so in terms of where you can find me, so the JTT Cup has its own X page, Twitter page, which is on the screen there at JTT Cup. Really simple. And then my personal Twitter is at coup84_FF. And in terms of 2025, so in the last 2 years, I've opened sign-ups for the following year on the draft day. I'm not doing that this year. I'm undecided as to when we're going to open sign-ups up. I like to open them early because we want to grow. If I raise just under 18,000 this year, then we'll get to 50 all time. So that's a good mark. It does mean raising $2,500 more than we did this year, which probably means that we need an extra, realistically, 150 people on top of what we had this year. In terms of when we're going to open them, I don't know. And the main reason for that, and what me and the other two co-commissioners are debating, is I had 40 people ghost me this year. So sign up and then not donate and not reply to messages just prompting them to donate. And the only bad thing actually about running the JTT Cup is people sign up and then they ignore your messages. If they come back to me and say, do you know what? I'm going through a hard time. I can't afford to play in paid leagues, even if it's a charity one. I'd rather they came back to me and said, I've changed my mind. I can't afford it. Because that's actually worse than just ignoring it. And I had 40 people do that this year.
Yeah, mate, it's absolutely nuts. I think these people have like an entitlement of just playing and thinking like, oh, well, I deserve to play. And there are definitely people, and I've seen this over the years, where people do just sign up and have no intention of donating, no matter how many times you reach out and ask people to donate, because for whatever reason, it's entitlement. There's so many leagues they don't want to donate to your charity because they donate to another charity. I think all of that is fine within reason, but like just say, look, I can't afford to, or I need a bit of time, or you're a very reasonable bloke. There's the amount of people I know who have messaged you and said, I really want to sign up and play, but I can't pay for like 4 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. And you always say, yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
you always, you're not a mafia bossy. You are approachable. You can talk to people. But I completely agree. And the same people did this for Scott Fishbowl. Did you see this with Matthew Berry?
No, I didn't.
There were 4 people that pledged to donate like $1,500 or wherever it was to draft with Matthew Berry. Went through all the process of bidding, getting there, and then as soon as it came up to pay up and donate, they just ran.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get that at all. Like, it's just, just send a message saying I don't want to do it. It's fine.
That's all it needs, to be honest. And so that's the reason I'm debating when to do it is I am considering making donations mandatory at sign up, which I don't know whether I'm going to do that or not. I don't know if that will put some people off. I don't know. I need to mull it over, and I'm going to talk to some of the guys who help me with the admin that are down in London with me tomorrow. So it's something I'm going to talk to them about, and I'm going to gauge a little bit from the community as well. Like some of the people close to me, like yourself, and then people like the Fantasy Sanctuary Discord. I just want to put it out there and go: if we made sign-ups mandatory, would it? If we make donations mandatory at sign-up, would it make you sign up earlier, later, the same, not at all kind of thing, and just gauge what's out there. But we will be back in 2025 for year 5. I'd love to get to 800 people. I think it's a stretch, but then I thought 600 was a stretch this year, and we got 620. I need to tap into the other side of the pond. So we have 102 people from the States this year, and we have nearly 500 from the UK, and then a few others dotted around the globe. I'd love to double the amount from the States, and I think that would get me there. But that's my plan. If I can get to 18,000 raised and 50 grand on time, then I will feel very, very pleased with myself. So,
mate, I fully believe you'll do it, brother. And again, absolute pleasure having you on, grabbing your insights. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy the weekend. Get those wonky stickers on the board. And make sure you put some people on tilt. You won't have me this year to contend with, so you'll have to do some annoying on my behalf for sure. But enjoy the event, and mate, just thank you so much for everything you do for this community and for all the money raised and everything you do. You're a top bloke, and you deserve a lot of love and support for everything that you do. So, Rush Nation, that's going to do it for this week. It was a great show with Matt, and make sure when you see the sign-ups for JTT 2025, make sure you do get out there and draft and donate and raise as much money for this exceptional charity. And then when you're in drafts this weekend, have fun, enjoy it. It's going to be starting around the same time England are going to win the Euros. There you go, I've jinxed it. So make the most out of it and really enjoy it. But until tomorrow's breakfast show. Oh, I do have one thing. Sorry, Matt, before I know you got to go. Is listener leagues are getting kicked off. So I invited all the champions of last year's leagues and the Patreons into our listener leagues. So look out on Monday, and I will post on the breakfast show the link to sign up to our listener leagues. Donation to charity, win one of our cool listener league t-shirts, and a place into Champions of Champions 2025. So keep an eye on that. But until tomorrow morning, don't forget, Rush Nation, as always, keep rushing.